coming today. I'm Barbara Harris, co-chair with Carol Woofsy of the Women's Voices Racial Justice Committee. One of the task forces that works within the committee is focused on affordable housing. And today we're going to hear from two representatives from SHED, which is a nonprofit organization that's working to build accessible community in University City. Women's Voices member Aunt Marianne Shaw has arranged this lunch and learn, and she is here to introduce our guests. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end, and Ann Litwin will help with those. So Marianne, take it away.
Thank you, Barbara, and welcome everyone. I'm so glad you can be here for this program. It's my privilege to introduce Adam Brown and Mimi Taylor-Hendrix to present this program today. For I'm really grateful for the work that they're doing in University City, the work of SHED and its many partners and programs. I believe it's really going to benefit residents that are living in the third ward of University City. The third ward is a wonderful, diverse community, friendly, many single-family, well-built homes, 2 excellent elementary schools, neighborhood parks, and gardens. I believe that we will find that SHED, through their example and their hard work, another opportunity for us to accomplish our mission to work for attainable housing in our community. Mimi is the president of the board of SHED. She is a 37-year resident of the third ward, where in addition to a career she had in sales, she's been very active, was very active in the past too, in the U City School District, where her 3 children have been students. She's also been on the Racial Justice Committee of her church, Christ the King Catholic Church. Adam, his education and expertise are in city planning and community development. Prior to becoming the ED of SHED, he worked for the city of University City in long-range planning and community development. And then in 2018, Adam and his wife bought a home and lived there, bought a home in the third ward and live in U City with all of us. I have a real personal passion and love for the work that SHED is doing in U City, which has been our home for 50 plus years, and the potential of SHED to really change lives in the third ward. Our family lived in the third ward during the 70s when our children were small. And in many ways, my heart is really still there. I've helped plant and maintain public gardens in the third ward. I shop there. I have many friends there, and I still work with teachers and students in the elementary school gardens in the third ward. I was really excited and hopeful when I learned of the work that SHED was doing, and I know they will continue to inform, inspire, advocate, and lead our city government in the direction of sustainable housing and equitable development. Adam and Mimi, thank you for what you're doing and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate that introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marianne. And thank you all for having us. I'm going to start off our presentation basically with just a little bit of context and background on SHED, the organization, a little bit more about the third ward to give you some more context about that neighborhood, and then tell you a little bit about our current programs and the direction we're trying to go. And then I'll turn it over to Mimi, and she can tell you more about some of the specifics of the programs and also some of our partners, and give you the residents' perspective of all this. I do live in the third ward. As Marianne mentioned, my wife and I bought a house here in 2018. But as far as considering myself a resident of the third ward, I am, but I feel like people like Mimi, who've been here for 37 years, have a stronger claim to that title. So it's important to me and to SHED's board that we're including the residents from this neighborhood who have been here for a long time in whatever decision-making process we have and what decisions the city is making. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and do a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation here. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So SHED does stand for Sustainable Housing and Equitable Development. And this is our mission statement, building stable foundations for accessible and inclusive communities. It was founded in 2009 by a group of faith-based organizations who wanted to assist seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities with home maintenance, with exterior home maintenance. And in 2014, it became a 501c3. But throughout that time, from 2009 to 2020, there was never a staff person. It was always an all-volunteer board doing work with all volunteers. And they did an amazing amount of work. They did, served over 400 residents in University City, as well as in a few other parts of the city. And in 2020, I got involved in 2019 when I was still working for the city of University City, and SHED was kind of on the brink of dissolving. The older board members had, put in a lot of work, but felt like, their time was up, and it wasn't clear whether the organization was going to continue. And I got involved working with one of the original board members, Rich Wymore, and we decided to try and transform this into a professional community development corporation. So a nonprofit that could actually do more, raise more funds, bring more resources to the neighborhood, and do more impactful work. And we wanted to expand on what SHED had already been doing. So we recruited a whole new board, went through a strategic planning process with funding from St. Louis County and technical assistance from RISE Community Development in the city. And coincidentally, I got laid off due to COVID that spring, and SHED was able to hire me as their first executive director in September of that year. And I was very thankful. This is the kind of work that I want to be doing, and particularly working on community development in my own neighborhood is very meaningful for me. This is our current board, and I put this up here partly to highlight the fact that of these 9 board members, 4 of them are residents of the 3rd Ward, and 6 of them are residents of University City. And that's important for SHED. One of our stated goals is to be resident-driven and responsive to the community that we're serving. So we've actively recruited board members from the 3rd Ward to make sure that we represent the population and the people that we're trying to serve. This is a map of University City for those of you who aren't too familiar with it. The 3rd Ward is the green area at the top. And it's basically, the easiest way to think of it is north of Olive Boulevard in U City. And when I moved to U City, people talked about the Olive Divide, the way that there's the Del Mar Divide in the city of St. Louis. In the county, we have the Olive Boulevard Divide. And we were actually, my wife and I, when we were looking for houses, were actually steered away from this neighborhood by several realtors saying, yeah, you don't really want to buy a house north of Olive. And there was such a unspoken, implicit, message behind that. And we found a new realtor who would, help us find the house we wanted. And we love the neighborhood here. But this is the neighborhood also that has, as far as sort of neighborhood challenges that some disinvested neighborhoods face in the county and the city, this is the neighborhood in U City that has the most of those indicators, has the highest number of vacant properties, vacant housing. It has the lowest housing values. And so these are some of the issues that SHED is trying to respond to. These are a little bit more sort of data about the 3rd Ward. It's about 38% renter occupied, about 43% are housing cost burdened, and over 75% of all the homes are over 50 years old. So what this means is, a lot of the homes need maintenance and have had deferred maintenance over the years due to people's economic situations in a lot of cases. This is the demographic breakdown, 71% Black and 15% below the poverty line. And again, these are kind of county-wide. The Olive Divide is, north of Olive is predominantly African-American. And then if you go south of Olive, it's predominantly white. So this is something that I just want to highlight as part of what our mission is, being focused on racial equity and social justice, is that there's this, like there are throughout this region in our country, there are these kind of unspoken lines, and due to the history that we're all aware of redlining and racial covenants, these areas have been disinvested and disadvantaged because of the history of racial politics. One of the other things that I was hearing a lot when I worked for UCity was a concern for the number of single family homes that were being converted to rentals. So this is a map in 2004 of rented single family homes. And by 2017, partly due to that, the economic crisis of 2008 and the mortgage crisis, a lot of these homes foreclosed and then were bought by investors who converted them to rentals. And, there's, in community development, we talk about like a healthy balance between rentals and home ownership. But one of the concerns I've been hearing from residents in this area is that not only it's not that rentals are inherently bad, but it's that people aren't having opportunities to buy these homes. It's that cash buyers and investors are buying the homes, converting them to rentals, which actually in most cases rent for more than what the mortgage would be for a homeowner. So this is another part of what SHED wanted to get involved in, is how can we promote home ownership opportunities for families who want to buy in this neighborhood and who would stay and invest in the neighborhood and send their kids to the schools and all of that good stuff that comes with people making that kind of long-term investment. We did do like a community survey when we started our organizational transformation, and these were the priorities that we heard from our survey. And so these are the priorities that we are trying to respond to through the expansion of our programs. These are our focus areas. So we do have 2 board members who are in the school district, and we have a close partnership with the school district. And we really want to bring kids from our construction training program into all of the housing work that we do. So we are trying to provide affordable housing opportunities. We're trying to promote homeownership. We're also trying to preserve and maintain quality housing in these neighborhoods, and generally just building community through all these activities. These are the programs. The volunteer home maintenance program is the same program that has been active since 2009. And that was the program where, volunteers would do exterior maintenance on homes for seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans. We're expanding into home repair program. This was one of the things we heard a lot from the old board and a lot of the old volunteers of SHED, is that we would be going back to the same homes every year and, cleaning the gutters, trimming hedges, painting, but really the homeowner needed a new roof, or they needed a new furnace, and SHED didn't have the capacity at that time to take on those kinds of more major repairs. And so our home repair program, we just received a $15,000 grant from the Marillac Mission Fund this year, which is our biggest grant ever to do home repairs. And we're going to be piloting a home repair program for seniors in University City, focused in the 3rd Ward. So hoping to leverage those funds and address more of the major issues. And the importance of that is, number one, helping the homeowners' quality of life, keeping them in their home, but also this idea of generational wealth and their ability to pass that home on to a future generation in good condition. So it's not only for the people who are receiving the home repairs, but hopefully it's for the future their family as well as the broader community that this is an impactful program. Another program we're rolling out this year, we recently were awarded home funds through St. Louis County to build 2 new homes on vacant lots in the 3rd Ward in University City. We're very excited about this program. These homes will be sold at affordable prices to low to moderate income buyers. So it is a targeted program that gives people the opportunity who would not otherwise, potentially be able to buy a home in this neighborhood. And the other part about this is that the students from the high school construction training program will be actively working on those homes during the construction process. So they're going to learn all about the pre-construction process, the design phase. They're going to be visiting the job site. They're going to do hands-on work on the job site. So we're really excited to be starting those, and it'll likely start construction in the fall of this year. The youth training program, as I mentioned, is getting kids from our career development and our high school construction training program into the community, working hands-on real jobs, on real job sites, and hopefully some of those turn into job opportunities. So they're going to be working with real contractors who, there's a huge shortage of workers in the trades. These students will be getting that kind of experience that will give them a leg up to get a job after high school, if that's what they're looking to do. Beyond that, I think it's great, just a skill set to have whatever they go into, to be able to work on their own home or to help out their family. So we're excited to integrate them into these other 3 programs of housing repair and building homes. And the final part of it is, as a community-based organization, part of our job is to be advocates for the community. And so we're advocating with the city of University City. As many of you are probably aware, there's a major development going up at Olive and 170. It's a Costco and a bunch of other commercial development. And part of the deal with that development was $15 million to be invested in the 3rd Ward and Olive Boulevard. And that money is going to be directed to the city of University City. And one of the roles that SHED is playing is to advocate for resident involvement in the planning process of how those funds are spent. So we're working with our city council members, and we're working with the city staff to try and make sure that whatever process they have to decide how that funding is spent, that U City residents and particularly 3rd Ward residents are involved in that process as much as possible. We really believe that there should be a comprehensive neighborhood planning process driven by residents of the 3rd Ward. So those are briefly, the programs that we have rolled out since this transition in 2020, and that's what we're working towards. And I am going to stop this slideshow and turn it over to Mimi at this point.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I am Mimi Taylor-Hendrix. I wear several hats. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator. I am president of the current board of SHED. I am the person who is behind the volunteer home maintenance program. I'm the one who responds to your calls on the SHED telephone line, and I'll be the one asking you to volunteer on our days of service. The volunteer home maintenance program, as Adam has said, it was the essence of what SHED was for 12 years. And it was children and adults, churches and families, the city of University City, the high school, all these folks coming together, despite the corona pandemic, masking requirements, social distancing, and all of that, to support in this past year, 68 University City homeowners with concrete repairs, weeding and trimming, scraping and painting, gutter cleaning, and general cleanup. We calculated, and I do believe this is an underrepresentation, at least 318 volunteers and over 1,000 volunteer hours spent just in 2021 in work days of April, June, and October. And it was through this effort that we were able to cross that threshold of 500 homes now being serviced by SHED. At least multiple houses of worship worked more than one weekend, and the October weekend of service in 2021 turned into 3 weekends in our effort to accommodate volunteers who could not make the original date. We had the home, so we'll work with you to get as many of them serviced. That was our biggest change to the home maintenance program, and that was to be active in the community more than just the work weekend in October, which was originally more or less attached or aligned with the Make a Difference Day. That is a national program. We still have 10 homes now that were not serviced last year for whom we had received applications, and they'll be the first on the list for what will be our April work time period. When the weather is warmer, and that's what we're concerned with in the beginning of the year, we'll recruit volunteers to help us tackle these homes and any others that may apply. The goal again this year is to service at least 50 homeowners within University City. Right now, the anticipated time period is the last weekend in April, April 30th and May 1st, and October 8th and 9th. And we did expand it to Sunday as well, because we do have some congregations who hold Saturday as their Sabbath. And we didn't realize that we may have been excluding them simply by saying that the workday was on Saturday, even though we may have also said, but we're willing to work with you. So we just threw it open to an entire weekend, and that has helped. I will contact everyone who participated last year, who is able to donate time and volunteers to the homeowners in 2022. We will announce to our residents through the Roars newspaper that goes to every U City household that should be coming out probably within the next 5 to 7 days. It'll go to everyone, and it'll announce the dates of the upcoming service weekends, and it will let folks know that it is time to call for an application and to get their application in. Also for volunteers to let them know that we are now recruiting. So stay tuned, watch for the Roars. Thank you for your interest in SHED, because we cannot do this without the volunteers that help us. As Adam had mentioned, one of the things about the third ward is it is what some call a neighborhood on the edge. And what that means is the neighborhood could tip positive or negative, depending upon the effort and finances that are made to make the neighborhood stable. And it is easier and less expensive to stabilize that neighborhood than it is to try to come back and rebuild it. So it's important that we get some input, especially on the funding that has already been received by the city from the developer of the I-170 project, to make sure that they do adhere to the plan to fund efforts within the third ward and the Olive Street corridor. And even from the business perspective of the Olive Street corridor, it is important to understand that it is not just that which exists at Highway 170. It goes all the way to Skinker, so that all of those people can get the help that they need to maintain the commercial business within the third ward. And the hope also of bringing outsiders through the entirety of University City, not just hopping off at 170 and Olives, whip into Costco, whip out of Costco, back on the highway, and they're gone. We want to draw them in, similar to what happens if you're on 170 and get off at Del Mar to get to the Loop. You come all the way through University City. That exposes folks to what University City is, as well as allowing them to see what businesses and services are available. So that's going to be important. Renting, and that is something that the city has said in probably last year in a council meeting, is that they were developing a housing program, and a concern about the larger number of rentals that have occurred within University City over the last several years. As Adam said, renters aren't inherently bad. Probably most of us, when we first left our parents' home, rented. Most people do. But if the effort is made to make rentals affordable, well maintained, and an effort to match the right person to the right rental, you get more stability in the neighborhood. Well-placed renters will stay twice as long as the average renter. Again, adding stability, reduces high turnover, gives you commitment to the neighborhood as a whole. So those are the things that we're concerned about, especially this funding that's coming now through the city. You may have heard of the visioning process that's going on. What does the city need? How do we do this? Talking about the city's plan for the next 5 or 10 years. As a matter of fact, it's up to the visioning process is UCity 2040. So what do we want our city to look like over the next 20 years? So if you get the opportunity to participate in any of those visioning sessions and those survey sessions, there's even going to be a focus group coming up, I do believe, later on this month, a couple of sessions. Please participate in them because we do want input, and especially input from the members of the residents of the Third Ward. So what can Women Voices do for us? Well, first of all, I want to give you a little bit more detail about what Adam talked about. For SHED, we do focus on the Third Ward of University City, but we're not exclusive to the Third Ward. Matter of fact, this year we had more homes in the Second Ward of University City than we've had in the past, and even a couple of homes in the First Ward, because a lot of them, again, not necessarily are huge homes. And they were homes that people bought, a lot of them still occupied by seniors, may have been able to handle things, especially when there were two of them, say a couple, but now one spouse has passed on, one person there, one income coming in, may or may not have additional savings, and again are finding themselves in a position where they physically or financially cannot maintain their home on their own. But I love the way that Elsie Glicker described our area. She said that it was an area of affordable homes and working class people. Not a slum. We're not deteriorating. We're again on the edge, and what effort is put into it will determine how successful we are as a neighborhood. Most homes could be considered entry-level homes, which again are needed as people move out of rental and decide to buy. Most of them are what I call bungalows, 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and solidly brick made. Who is our typical client? They qualify primarily under one of 3 categories. They're a senior, they're disabled, or they're a veteran. They're generally lower to mid-income residents. Many don't have family anymore in the area that can help them with the exterior home maintenance issues that they can't physically or financially do anymore. Several residents are referred to SHED when they are cited by the UCity inspectors because there are citations for violations of code. So as the inspector leaves them, they many times are saying, you might want to call SHED to see if you can get some help. And we are saying you might want to tell the city to fund us so we can do some of this work as well. Because some of the things we can do, some of the things we can't do. I mean, we're a volunteer group. If it's a roof, if it's major concrete walkway repair, that's not something we do. But we can refer them to people who can do it, and then you can funnel the money through a nonprofit. So that's how that would work. The other area is, what do? We do, as Adam said, we do the minor exterior home repairs. We do not at this point go into the inside of a person's home. Cleaning gutters, scraping and painting, trimming overgrowth. That's a big issue. Trimming overgrowth from fences, minor concrete repairs and filling cracks. More extensive home repairs have to be done by a licensed contractor. And one of the things we do when we hear that issue is we try not to leave the resident with nothing. We try to refer them to CORP, the County Older Resident Program, through which they can get the names and phone numbers, of vetted contractors who are experienced, reliable, dependable, reasonable, and most offer senior discounts. SHED will recommend residents also to other agencies that might be able to assist, such as Castle or Rebuilding Together. What are our partnerships? Well, there were 11 churches or houses of worship. Last year, 2 universities participated, 2 hardware stores, 1 high school, 1 fraternity, and any number of individuals who can be assigned to a group that's already established with a lead person on that team to give some extra help. The board expertise, as Adam pointed out also, we've got a professional contractor. We have experienced DIYers, including Adam. We have 2 real estate community development experts. We have teachers in construction. We have school administrator, community development banking experience, and several longtime residents of the 3rd Ward, which is our focus area. And how can you help? Well, contributions are always welcome for supplies and administrative support. And that's important because sometimes some of these larger grants that we have beginning to get are restricted in their use. They can only be used for home repair. They can only be used for these kinds of things. So the administrative help that we need to keep this man around, which has helped us get to the point where we are today, is also needed. Share your knowledge of other agencies that you've come across who can help our older residents in need. Add to our list so that, again, if we can't directly help a resident, we have other agencies that we can tell them to call and see if they can get some assistance. Volunteer to participate in the days of service, again, April 30th to May 1st or October 8th through 9th. And the last thing is spread the word about what SHED is doing. Because again, you never know where your help is going to come from. So we do appreciate your time and energy today. And if there's any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Now is the time for question and answers. We have one question in the chat now. And if others have questions, you would like to add them into the chat, or we'll also probably have some open time. There is a question right now that asks, how would someone apply to purchase one of the homes you are building or rehabbing? Do prospective buyers have to be current residents of U-City?
So the buyer does not have to be a current resident of University City. They do have to qualify, as I mentioned, income. The homes will be available to people with 80% of the area median income or less. And so SHED will qualify them through, income, bank statements, et cetera. And then they will also be required to do a home ownership training course, which is that comes from the funding that we're getting, requires that for the purchaser. And those are administered through some of the larger nonprofits in the county, like Beyond Housing, the Lime Housing Partnership. So whoever the buyer is will go through a training course that helps them understand the buying process, as well as gives them some tools and knowledge about, maintaining the home over time as an investment.
Okay, thank you. There's another question that's popped in. Are the rental homes occupied by single families or subdivided into apartments? I suppose that means the homes that are rental homes now.
I think the majority of the single family homes that are rentals are a single family renting the home. I don't actually know that our code would allow for them to be subdivided into smaller apartments. There may be some of that happening, below the radar. But as far as, and I'd have to look back at our code, but there's restrictions on the number of unrelated people that can live in a home together. And so I think that restricts who can rent these single family homes. And U-City does require occupancy permit. So I think as far as that goes, we're fairly strict about who's renting the homes.
And you'll find that more of an issue in some of the areas of St. Louis City, where you have some larger homes that are now being subdivided into apartments. So that's an issue that some of them are concerned with there.
Susan, does that answer your question, or was there more that you wanted to know? Okay, well, if so, come on later. Then there's another question here now that asks, does the income qualification also prohibit developers from coming in and buying up properties?
Yes, the person who buys the home has to live in the home. And there is a restriction on the amount of time they can live in the home before they sell it, based on the funding again. I believe it's a 5-year restriction, where that homeowner can't sell the home for a profit within that time period. So it does prevent, sort of profiteering or prospecting, with these homes.
Okay. There's another question here. Is SHED coordinating or working with the nonprofit CDC that's working in the U-City Northeast neighborhood?
Probably referring to With Action is what I'm thinking. And
So
we've had conversations. We've had conversations with members of that organization as well.
is that your question, Susan?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So what other questions have you got from Adam and Mimi? Those are the only ones that are in the chat.
I will also say, just in response to that last question, we have made efforts to sort of identify and reach out to any potential community partners that we can find in U-City or in the region. And our board, and I also agree with this, feel very strongly that SHED is better if we partner with people. So we're very open to partnerships. For the home repair program that we're rolling out this year, we're going to do a partnership with Castle, the Community Action Agency of St. Louis County. They have a weatherization program, and they spend typically $10,000 to $15,000 on a house that they weatherize. And so if we can bring our resources together with that, we can leverage more funding to impact the homes that we do work on. So we have a maximum of $5,000 with our grant that we can spend per home. But if we can partner with Castle, we can get up to $20,000 invested in that home. So we're actively, looking for partnerships, and always willing, if anyone knows other organizations, like Mimi said, that we should be talking to or referring people to, we're always happy to have the conversation.
Great.
Yeah, we can't do this alone. And we're not, I've always told people from the very first day of being on the board, I am not about reinventing the wheel. If there's somebody out there who can get the job done that we can't do, maybe the best thing for us to do is to fund them and let them get the job done. So you do need input and help and assistance. This is a big undertaking, especially with this whole comprehensive plan for the city and the efforts to really help revitalize this third ward and to do the maintenance of the third ward that has been sorely neglected by the city. In the 37 years that I've been here, we have fought this battle many a time, been asked to show up at a council meeting because decisions were going to be made. And historically, it comes down to the 2 council people for the third ward vote yes, and the rest of the council and the mayor vote no. And people don't always understand that. And it isn't just the 2, it's not necessarily the fault of the 2 third ward council people. It's the mayor and council. There's 7 votes involved there. You got to get at least 4 of them. And so this has been, if not qualifying for benign neglect, it's neglect nonetheless. And some of the things we're now going to try to do with some of that funding from the I-170 redevelopment project should have been done. And so it's important that we watch and make sure that it does get done, because I said this can tip the neighborhood one way or another. And it's less expensive to keep it while it still is something that can be sustained, rather than trying to come back later on and fix it. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Barbara, did you have a comment?
I did. I'm not good at chatting, so chat. Do you have any problems with absentee landlords with your rental properties?
Yeah, when we looked into the data when I was at the city in terms of that increase in the number of rentals, it also had an increase with out of town and out of state landlords, which is a national trend actually since the housing crisis. There's a new, a new kind of trend in investments in real estate, particularly in single family homes, as just an investment for, someone in California can buy a block of homes in St. Louis and never touch them and never meet the people who live in them and have a management company and just see the income coming in. And that's something we also are working with the city and advocating for is code enforcement that is responsive to those kinds of issues. There are legal tools that a neighborhood organization or a group like Shed can use to try and address issues with landlords if they're happening. I think that's probably more the city's task to take that on, but that's certainly something we're hearing from residents and want to stay on top of.
Good. Barbara, did you have another part of your question?
No,
Okay.
That's good.
There's one more housing question in here just now, and then there's something that's not housing related, but I'll stay with housing just for now. How do you advertise the homes that are available for purchase or rent?
So once the homes we build are available, we have a real estate agent who we're working with who will, advertise them through the normal channels. We have had discussions about, when these homes go up for sale, Shed won't be controlling the person who buys that home or the family who buys that home beyond the qualifications of the program. But we have had discussions about, targeted advertising through the school district, for example, to try and attract maybe people with kids already in the school system who would want to buy a house in the neighborhood. And that I like that idea a lot, because in my mind, a family with kids in the school district is probably one of the people, who would most be invested in the community. And obviously Shed is making this bridge between housing and schools. So that's important to us. So we can do some targeting advertising like that, but in the end, whoever comes and qualifies first is eligible to buy the home.
Years ago, there was a group of us were selected by the superintendent at the time, as Dr. Beckwith, and we did some exit surveys for folks who were leaving the schools and trying to find out what they wanted, why they were leaving, that kind of a thing. And one of the statistics that we discovered through that survey was whereas most people in University City believe that the city is pretty much evenly split, 50% Black, 50% white, more or less. When you look at the families with school-age children, it broke down 2/3 Black, 1/3 white. So there are more families of color here with their children who are participating in our school district. And a lot of those would love to trying to make the move from rental to home ownership. This would be a way for them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a thought about, since one of the primary motivations or primary causes of a lot of the trouble is the segregation situation. Mm-hmm. Is there any thought about trying to diversify the population in the third ward?
Well, that's going to kind of be up to the people. See, and look also at there's a concern kind of underlying conversations sometime that if you build up the neighborhood too much, then it's going to become gentrified. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, the cost of housing is going to rise to a point that the people who are there now can no longer afford to stay there. I'm not as concerned about that. And I guess this is just a totally different issue. I'm not as concerned about that because of the kind of home that is there. It is an entry level. It is a single level. It is a bungalow. It is 2 to 3 bedroom, 1 bath. We are right now, at least, not the hot area that prompts gentrification. But you can move, but I will tell you also this, Mr. Shaw, after living here for 37 years, in a very simplistic way, I've seen a lot more young white kids in the area, walking their dogs, walking with their kids in strollers. And I mean, enough to the point that after 37 years, it's like, oh, so they're here, they're coming, they're realizing that this is what they can afford. There are many solid homes in good neighborhoods in the third ward, and they're moving in. So I think that will continue to happen, especially as additional funds are put in to shore up the infrastructure of the third ward.
Mhm. Very good.
Yeah, I think the one of the real problems has been the conception of the school district and not realizing what a wonderful school district it is. In our own neighborhood, the vast majority of the white family kids do not go to the public schools.
Mhm.
Which is really a shame. And it's right across the street and it's free. And I think there's just not an understanding of what wonderful resources we have right here in our community.
Well, but that's another thing through our survey back a couple of decades ago, is that has always been the way it was in University City. I mean, there's always been a strong, I am Catholic, so I will say there's a strong Catholic presence where they were supporting the Catholic schools and private schools. So that has always existed. Why it's dropped to the point we have in the last, say, 2 decades, a lot of it is perception, a lot of it is prejudice.
Well, that's, yeah. And I mean, when my wife and I were looking to buy a house in University City, one of the things we heard from a number of different people, and there was a different story from different people. It was like, yeah, you can send your kids to the elementary schools, but then you'll probably want to send them somewhere private, or you can send them through junior high and then you'll want to send, and we heard all these different opinions about it. And I've spent a good amount of time in the high school and interacted with the kids, and I don't see any problem with our schools at all from my experience. And my niece and nephew attended Pershing Elementary in the third ward and had a good experience. And, so I think it is a perception thing. And again, that's one of the hopes of SHED, making this connection between housing and the schools and trying to help both at the same time. They both have to come up together. One doesn't survive without the other.
Absolutely.
Or thrive
Absolutely.
without the other.
Absolutely. And perceptions die hard.
Mm-hmm.
They die hard. So that's why it's really good for me to see a lot of the young white folks moving into this area, because it's going to really be up to them. It's not going to be up to me. It's going to be the next generation and the generation after that. They're going to be the ones to change it.
Thank you. Well, there's one more question in the chat that it's not housing related, but let's see what you have to say. This question will impact lower income residents throughout U City. Does SHED have a position on the proposed additional 1/4% sales tax?
Oh, the one that's coming up that's supposed to support the the fire protection agency. I have a personal opinion, but I'm going to choose to keep that personal. Because I don't see how it really impacts what we're trying to do within University City.
Yeah, I don't think SHED has sort of an official position as an organization that we've taken on that.
Okay. All right. So we have time for one more, if there's one more question. Okay. Barbara, did you have some closing remarks? I know I have an announcement.
Yeah, no, just thank you to our guests. They did a terrific job, and thank you for all your good work.
Thank you all for having us.
Yes.
It's been delightful for me also. And I want to just and see if Mary, do you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you very much. But this was wonderful for me as well. A lot of the things I knew, but a lot was new information and has just really inspired me to get more involved.
Fantastic.
So I would like to, on behalf of Women's Voices, thank you, and also let our listeners, our participants know that our next program is what we call Lunch and Learns, which is at this time of day. Actually, this one will be at 1 p.m. is going to be on March 3rd. And the topic will be mental illness is not a crime. City diversion program that is shifting 911 calls to mental health professionals. It's been piloted for, it's a year old. It's had 2 successful pilots, and we're going to get a chance to see what they've learned in terms of how to make this work. So that's March 3rd at 1 p.m. Mary Schumann, did you have more you wanted to say about that? No. Okay. All right.
Excellent.
So thank you, everyone. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much to our speakers.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having
I
us.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Marianne.